right. Hey, everyone. This is Mark Adamski with the Wilderness Reboot podcast, a transitional support community for wilderness alumni. And bringing us to this wilderness idea, we have the Wilderness Mamas with us today. We're going to interview, talk about their book, talk about their story, hear their journey getting into this space, and just everything in between with maybe some stories from their kids. And yeah, we're just so happy to have you on and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So we have Denise here and Jenny, and I'm curious to hear about how you two came together, how the book started, and even before that. So, I would love to just naturally and organically kind of just ask you to introduce yourselves and, share your story.
Do you want to
Denise,
go first, Jenny?
I was going to say the same thing to you. Sure. So my name is Jenny Prince. My daughter Lucy is 20 years old, and she was sent to Wilderness when she was a junior in high school. Our journey began briefly in junior high school, middle school. She started using. A friend gave her. She was and grew up in a not too happy home that was sad, and she struggled with a lot of anxiety and depression, as well as some learning challenges, and all that culminated together to her not wanting to feel sad and depressed all the time. So she started self-medicating. Where she is today and it was bad. And I'll tell you that even it got so bad that her drug of choice became Coke, and she was doing lines of Coke as a junior in high school. Her father and I, although we are divorced, we knew something needed to be done, and we started researching different things. The biggest thing I kind of knew of were like military type camps. I wasn't familiar with wilderness. And a former coworker shared with me about sending her child to a wilderness program. And my thought was like, well, gosh, that sounds so much better. I knew this person well enough and knew that they were a meticulous researcher. So I didn't do a ton of research when she recommended the camp that her child went to. And within 2 weeks, Lucy was registered and at the camp.
Wow.
Today, she is today's actually a sober anniversary for her. She's over 2 years sober, and she is doing fantastic. She's actually an honor student. She's been at the community college here. She'll graduate in December with honors. She's heading off to University of North Carolina at Wilmington to major in social work, and she wants to work in the same field with girls with dual diagnosis. And in her words, become a wilderness therapist because she wants to, like I said, in her words, save people's lives like mine was saved due to wilderness.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It tends to be a theme, like, when you get touched by the magic and someone helps you, you tend to give it back. I see that a lot, and so it's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
And anything else to add, or are we moving on to Denise?
As far as like a brief introduction, just that wilderness, I think, not only changed her life, but it changed mine and her brothers. As we learned to cope better as a family, we learned how to communicate. They made us read this book called The Parallel Process, and it really is that, because we worked on ourselves while she worked on herself. She went to Wilderness for about 3 months, and then she was in a residential treatment center for her senior year in high school. I think Wilderness got her sober, and her work at her RTC helped her want to stay sober and work on the deeper stuff was brought to the surface. But Wilderness changed our lives, and we will be big fans forever.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Denise.
So my name is Denise. Yeah, I first heard about wilderness therapy back when he was, maybe like 2 years old. I met a wilderness therapist.
Oh, wow.
And he was telling us about his job. And my first thought was, wow, rich parents who can't control their kids, sending them away to live in the woods. I was like, just bad parents. And then behold, 14 years later, I'm doing the exact same thing. He mostly went just for anger. He was just a very angry teenager, holes in the walls, walking on eggshells around him. We talked to him and he'd be like, yeah, I know, I'll do better. And then the next day there's a new hole in the wall. He's been suspended from school again. So it was a Wednesday afternoon, I get a phone call from the school that he's been suspended for the 4th time, and he was going to get kicked off the lacrosse team. And they wanted us to meet on Monday morning at the school. So I was like, oh no. So Wednesday after that, he had a therapy appointment, and the therapist says, Drew, leave the room. I want to talk to your mom alone. And then he said, yeah, I think he needs to go somewhere. And he gave me a name of some place, and I don't even remember the name of it. But I called them, and they said, we don't have any openings. And I was just determined that he needed to go. You know, someone said to go, there was a plan, and it was the first time that anyone had said anything beyond therapy. So I was just ready to move. So I just made phone calls to a bunch of places, and Friday we made the selection of where to send him. Went into the school Monday, told the school we were sending him away, and I think they were very happy. So I don't know if they were going to kick him out or not. And then he was there the following Thursday. We did tell him he was going. We talked to him Sunday night and asked him, how far are you willing to go to get help? And I don't know all that had happened right before that, but he was at the point of almost being catatonic in bed, you know, with the anxiety, the depression, being kicked off the lacrosse team. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm willing to get help. I need something. So we told him, and so he went willingly. So he was able to get working on himself right away, because he didn't have the initial shock of, you know, being, you know, taken in the morning by strangers. So he was there for 68 days. And then he did come home right afterwards. We just felt that he could come home. And he went into a recovery IOP afterwards, because we knew he had been smoking a little bit of weed, but we didn't know it was a daily thing. We didn't know he had been abusing his ADHD medicines. So he went into the recovery program afterwards. And that's where we met Jenny and Lucy.
Okay. And so Jenny had a recommendation from a friend, and you found this location. Well, you also had earlier contact back in Maine with a wilderness therapist, coincidentally. And so did either of you find a consultant to work with, or were you kind of navigating this on your own?
Initially, for the wilderness, we did it all on our own. We just did a Google search.
Right.
I did not talk to my friend who was a wilderness therapist, because there's that whole stigma of, you know, my kid's troubled, I'm sending him away. So I did not talk to him to get any advice. We did it all on our own, just Google searching and making, you know, cold calls. And then to come home, the facility actually told us about the program that he went to.
Awesome. Jenny?
And so we, the same thing for wilderness. We did not use an educational consultant for wilderness. We did use a transportation service that came and gooned Lucy and took her to wilderness, because we knew she wouldn't go willingly. I also used an educational consultant after Seuss to help us decide what to do for going forward once she graduated from wilderness. And so that was, and then that person helped us find the residential treatment center that she went to. And then when she came back to North Carolina, she helped us find the aftercare program where I met Denise and Drew.
Awesome. And so, yeah, this is really good to hear from the two of you, because not every family tends to go that direction. And it's really important to hear your experience and hear your journey. And so if you'd like to share, can I ask, what program did your children end up going to?
They both went to Seuss at the Carolinas. It's right outside of Asheville, North Carolina.
Awesome. And I've been down there. I've met personally with Sharon and their clinical team and their staff, and they've done an amazing job, like introducing all of them, all of their staff personally, what they do, what they focus on, their approaches. They have a really great program. I definitely know they're a premier wilderness program, and they do some really good work. So that's awesome to hear. So they do wilderness. What you've reported some of the transformation after, but in your quick opinion, before we kind of move on to the transitional side, like, why do you think wilderness works so well with your kids and what you saw, and maybe from, you know, what they reported when they're out there?
I think Go ahead, and then I'll go.
I think it's just a total reset for them. You know, they out there, they're cut off from everything and everybody. You know, they took their phones, which is the biggest blessing I think you can give a teenager, is no phone. So, you know, they had no phone, they had no watches even. And, you know, as my son said at one point, he didn't know what time it was. And that was a good thing, because he said, if I knew it was 2:30, I'd be thinking, all right, I'm leaving school, I'm going to go up to the parking lot and I'm going to go get high with so and so. So he couldn't think those thoughts. He was able just to be 100% in the moment and working on himself and not thinking about what he'd be doing if he was at home. So I think that was, you know, one of the things that helped him the most. And the other thing he said was it taught him how to express his feelings. He said that originally he went in there and he didn't know if he was sad or mad, let alone how to express that. So he learned to recognize and express how he was feeling. And that's something that, you know, 4 therapists over 2 or 3 years have never been able to do for him.
Right, a little bit more hands-on. You're getting out,
Yeah.
disconnected from old patterns, old behaviors, old environments, and now you're put somewhere new to, you know, now be a little bit more independent and cultivate a little bit more passion and clarity, and start to like think about tough things. And that's a tough age. There's a lot of social complexity, and there's just a lot of just big things that you have to tackle at that age, and finding meaning and purpose, and also just having emotional language, knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and how to process that in a healthy way. And you know, and that takes like a lot of attention to detail, intimate staff who are with them on the day-to-day in the trenches out in the backcountry, and knowing where to find that sweet spot of not totally blowing someone out of their comfort zone, but stretching and challenging them just a little bit, and helping them, you know, have that self-efficacy, that confidence, and become a leader, and, you know, help others. And that's a culture you definitely see in wilderness. It's really meaningful work, and that's really cool to hear. And what about yourself, Jenny?
Very similar. I think one of the greatest things is that they are completely and totally isolated from everything that's external that caused so much of their pain or sadness or anger. The fact the phone was a huge thing. It was very hard not being able to pick up the phone and call her or text her or see how she's doing. But I think one of the gifts that came too is learning to, because we'd write letters once a week, and her seeing how her language changed in her healing, as well as my language and how I would talk to her, was a really great thing to really see and experience the growth and the maturity that happened. And I think that her being able to start succeeding at things like some of the exercises they do, like fort building or starting a fire or whatever those things may be that are part of the wilderness process, her seeing her start to achieve things and feel good about herself was amazing. But as well as like you said, learning to digest those sad moments that are hard to digest, and whatever that sad moment may be, and learning what are some healthy outlets and skills how to handle those sad, tough, frustrating moments versus, oh, I'll go do a line of coke or I'll smoke some weed or whatever that escape may be. And I think one of the phrases that stuck out with Lucy that we still kind of not laugh about, but we're like, oh, we've learned to be uncomfortable in the uncomfortableness.
I was just thinking that, and you stole those words, and that's what it sounds like. That's what's so amazing about the wilderness. It fosters that resiliency, and just being comfortable with the uncomfortable, not knowing all the answers, but knowing where to start, understanding that process, and learning some new skills, implementing more coping mechanisms. And it sounded like mentioning when you were mentioning the letters that you would write, getting a little bit better with really thinking, what am I really feeling, and trying to communicate that to the best of my ability. And that's what I think is so special about wilderness is a lot of folks use it as an early assessment tool for earlier intervention. And the thing is, you really see what's showing up at home show up in wilderness, and you see it show up within that community and in those relationships and that communication. So those things that are coming up at home, those patterns, maybe not talking to mom the nicest tone, or friends or family, and you see that come out with group members, and you talk about it and you say, what is that? And you have a safety net where there's no judgment, no one's accusing each other, and people are there to support each other, and get a little vulnerable. I think that's what's really special about that. Okay, so now the two of you are trying to navigate, maybe while and during your children in wilderness, you're doing letter writing. You're considering now, they're going to be coming out of that program. You mentioned 68 days, Denise. I don't know about you, Jenny. What were you two thinking for next steps and that transitional journey now?
I think for us, Lucy wasn't sure in the beginning if she wanted to be sober, if she wanted to make changes in her life. And when she finally got to the point that she did want to commit to her healing and her sobriety and do the tough work, she, with the help of her therapist, told me and her father, I can't come home. But we knew the environment that home was, and home not just meaning inside the walls of the home, but the entire environment of the hometown and the high school and things like that, that all the work that happened at Seuss would not would all be for naught if she went right back into the same environment.
Right.
So that's when we leaned on the staff at Seuss to help us find an education consultant. And we had a fantastic one that helped us. She went and met with Lucy at Seuss. They allowed that to happen. She interviewed Lucy's dad and me. She talked to Lucy's hands-on therapist at Seuss, some of her counselors, and really then came to us and said, these are three options that seemed like they would be the best for Lucy. So that really helped us do a lot of the legwork that I think I wouldn't have even known what questions to ask because I was still in that hurting place of healing myself. So looking back, I will never regret doing that. She was gone almost an entire year. She was gone 2.5 weeks shy of being not living in my home for a year, but it was exactly what was needed for her healing. So she needed, because once she made the commitment to be sober, she then needed to work on the issues that caused her to use. And so I think that the wilderness again was the catapult to that, and still the baseline and the foundation of what was done. And then the transition from her wilderness staff to her RTC staff really made a difference in finding the right therapist to continue the work that she was doing. And then that same education consultant, after Lucy was gone for her senior year, when she came back to North Carolina, it was finding a good place for her to go to for a social outlet, because she obviously didn't need to be friends with the same people. It was the middle of COVID, and the ed consultant helped us transition her back home as well.
Fantastic. Denise.
So we pretty much just winged it the entire time, because we knew really nothing about it. I didn't know you could hire education consultants. Didn't know such a thing. Didn't know about all of these programs. I didn't know about therapeutic boarding schools or residential treatment centers. All that was stuff I didn't know about. So when it was time to start planning for him to come home, they did mention going somewhere else, but we chose not to because, well, one, money, it's expensive.
That's good to hear.
And two,
Yep.
we were hoping that he had made enough progress that he could come home if he had the right support. So that's when the program did find the intensive outpatient program here in Charlotte for us. And he got home on a Tuesday and he was there Wednesday morning. And thankfully he loved it. And it became his new family. He was there every day. He actually works for them now. So it was definitely the right place to send him. But we also made sure that he did not go back to his old school.
Sure.
And thankfully, we lived about 30 minutes from his school. So he wasn't running into old friends or anything. So we homeschooled him for his senior year and said, no contact with old friends.
Right.
So we were very fortunate in that we did bring him home, and it worked out for us.
Wow. Yeah, it's really good to hear your stories because, Jenny went one direction, you went another, Denise, and it sounds like both your kids, they are back in this field and in this line of work. I know you just mentioned that your son's now working for that IOP that he was there with, and Jenny's daughter wants to help
And that's
out.
what we say about what's so great about wilderness therapy is that you couldn't have two more different stories than Lucy and Drew, but they ended up in the exact same place.
Right.
But they both took totally different roads to get there.
Okay, so now this is going to be how we kind of lead into your book. And so now I want to hear how you two met, how this all emerged. And it sounds like your kids are as well learned that they're in Sue's, or you guys found it first. You told me a little bit, but I want to hear the whole story.
Okay.
Of how Jenny and I met?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the IOP program that the kids were at had a parent meeting component. Mm-hmm. So every Wednesday night there was a parent meeting. And both Jenny and I utilized that meeting, and we were there every Wednesday. And we started to do a parent 12-step. So we went to a 12-step meeting, and that's when I found out that, our kids had been at the same wilderness program. And I pulled her aside, and I was like, are you doing anything to try to get insurance reimbursement for this? And so we just got talking about it. And when my son was at the program, I had made the comment that it would be really cool to edit out some parts of his letters, but to just make a book out of just our letters and his letters, just to see the transformation. So it was always in the back of my head a little bit. And then I don't remember exactly how it went down between Jenny and I.
Well, and I think like Denise said, yes, we met at this parent support group meeting, and it was if you would, I would kind of liken it to an Al-Anon type thing, but it's just for the kids that are in that program. And I had actually tried an Al-Anon program itself, but it was just such a different feel versus parents that had their kids in a program that it was just, kind of a microcosm, if you will, of parents whose kids need treatment. So for me, when I first started going to that parent meeting, this has been the hardest, most isolating journey that I've ever been on. And I've been through divorce, a parent death, everything. But when your kid's hurting and you can't fix them, it becomes just debilitating. It's that old phrase, you're only as happy as your happiest child. And so when Denise and I figured out that both our kids were at SUS, they are different times, and male and females do not mix. And there's different programs that are more emotionally driven, more that are addiction driven, that type of thing. So they were not in the same program at Wilderness, but they both were at a Wilderness program. And for me, it was just like where she talked about the letters being a big piece of it. For me, it was like, no parent should have to feel this way. And I didn't know what to do. I was blindly kind of following whatever someone told me. And thank goodness they were good people that told me that, because I didn't know what to do. It's not like you can.
Yeah.
And then you have everybody posting all the most happiest, most beautiful, easiest life that they have with their most perfect children on Facebook. And I'm like, let's see, my kid's an addict, and I just spent her college education to get her treatment, and I don't know what I'm going to do from here, that kind of thing. So I think Denise came to it from a point, correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, of like, gosh, these letters are worth sharing because we can see the growth and healing in it. And I came to it from somebody's got to help these other parents out, because as we got further involved in the parent group, you would see the new parent come in and their hurt would look exactly how I knew I felt at that beginning of the process. And so we ended up, I think, over coffee or breakfast one morning talking about what we could do. And we're here today because of that.
Wow. Yeah, support groups is just a great way to come together and understand folks who've been in your shoes as well, right? It's a long journey. It's it's tough, but there's a lot of growth on the other side, right?
Right.
And
I think
it's very isolating.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, like you said, the growth. I think the piece that's important that we touch on in the book as well is, along with our kids growing and healing, we have to be part of that as well. We have to be willing to look at ourselves and what do I need to do different? How should I communicate differently? What are the expectations of the home? And I think when you make yourself vulnerable enough to talk to another parent and learn from them, um, it's just kind of magical, if you will, because your dearest friends in the world may be very sympathetic to what's going on. There'll be plenty of people that are judgy, like Denise started with, like, who would send their kids somewhere like this?
Right.
But then leaning on other parents and asking advice. Hey, what did you do when that type situation? And, it's kind of a funny offshoot. Like when I was talking to my daughter about the book, she's like, well, gosh, if we make a lot of money, you and Denise will owe Drew and I a bunch of money. And I was like, when we've and we did not write this book to make money, but like when we've recovered every time we spent on your recovery, then you can get some kickback. But this was not a get rich scheme or anything like that. It was truly, how do we help other parents that have felt like us who didn't know what to do?
Sure.
Because I think that, I know I knew nothing. And just going into the whole situation blind was hard, because I think if I knew more, I could have made better decisions. So, and that's one thing like I wanted to address in the book, was just a little bit of everything. And just questions to ask, because I didn't even know what questions to ask these facilities. I honestly did not know that Drew was going to be going into the woods and not coming out. I thought that he was going to have the choice of, did he want to stay at base camp or go out into the woods? I didn't even know to ask that question.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to help other parents out there with what to ask and, what they need to know.
And also give them hope. I think that this investment that you're making in your family and your child, and it'll be the hardest tough love thing you'll ever do. But when I see where my daughter is now and where Drew is now, it's better than I ever dreamed for her when she was little. So
Yeah.
I think that's this human that she's turned out to be is where the tears used to be sadness of like, how did I get here? I think now it's more like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that I'm here, and just a gratefulness of that and wanting to give back to others. Parents, though, they never, ever, ever, ever have to feel the pain that Denise and I experienced, and at least some guidance on how to cope through the process and give their children help as well.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you can help just one person, one family, one parent navigate this tough journey, the better, right? And
Right.
it's so great hearing your stories because, as much as I always recommend working and consulting with professionals, it's not always a reality and choice for everyone. And everyone comes into this and learns this from a different avenue. And it's so great to hear the stories and just the journey of parents just like you, the wilderness mamas. And so to kind of wrap up here, I just again want to thank you so much for being on here. Is there anything you would finish saying or mention to families considering wilderness therapy, going through this process, or the whole journey after? Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing I would say is make sure you lean in and do the work alongside your child, because I had the misconception that I had these problems with my daughter. I'd send her away. She'd come back all, wrapped up in a nice little bow and everything would be perfect. Right. So that is not the case. So I think the realization that we have to do our own work and that things will be different, and different is hard, but the end result of different is good. So I think being patient, being willing to be vulnerable, and being willing to, I think, share your story with others, because you might be surprised who you're helping along the way or who might can help you.
I love that. Thanks so much.
I agree with everything Jenny said. I would just add on there of, find your people, find people that you can talk to who understand and not judge you. Open up, share your story, because you're helping others, but you're also gonna get back, and they're gonna help you. So, and ask questions. Like I said, I didn't ask questions. I got very lucky, but don't be shy, and ask questions.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing. It's really just an honor to have both of you on here. Where can we find the book?
So this is the book. It is on Amazon. The name of it is Into the Wilds, A Mother's Guide to Wilderness Therapy. It discusses, it's a very high level, easy read that you could do in a day, that I think we wanted to present everything from what wilderness is, who wilderness is for, how to choose a program, how to pay for it, what myths and concerns there are about it, getting to the woods, what we do. We have examples of letters that both of our kids read. I wrote home. My first letter from my child was, "Why the blank did you send me here?" And then the last letter was, "Oh my God, thank you so much for sending me here." And so you see the transition in some of the letters that our children wrote. And there's a couple other kids that are featured for their stories as well. But it's on Amazon. You can buy it in a softback, or you can download it on your Kindle. And we think this is a good guide for anyone from a parent to a guidance counselor to maybe a youth director. My sweet dad recently bought a bunch of copies and took them to different churches in my hometown to give them to youth directors. So for people that work with teens and parents, this is a resource for them. So we just hope that that it makes a difference and has some impact.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to put that in the description box below, and we'll make sure we link it to Amazon so you can find it. For folks who want to get in touch and see the book, we're going to put it in the description below and link it to the Amazon page where they can buy it. And for families who are listening, you got a little taste of the Wilderness Mamas and their story. And for the rest of it, be sure to check out the book. Thanks so much for coming on.